Back. There we go.
I think we got a problem. Got a problem.
Let's go. Get up. It's that club, baby. You hear that? We can't sit down to that. Okay.
Yo, what up, y'all? It's your boy, Sheik Luch, LOXD Block, Silverback. Hey, yo, right now I need to shout out the ISUPK classes.
I want to give a huge, big, humongous shout out to all the UPK schools.
Shout out to Black Watch, hosted by General Johanna. Word, I need y'all to check out Cross the Line Radio as well, man. They've been open all week from 7 to 9. They ain't shut down because of the corona, the COVID and all that. They rockin' strong, you know what I mean?
Think we got a problem, but really it ain't though. It's one of me and these bitches, I count about 3, 4. Think we got a problem, but homie just all talk. He ain't gon' pop a balloon with a pitchfork. Think we got a problem in the club with this dog. Rude boys, dogs, ladies, everybody.
Always sip on my own. Don't need you all in my zone. Spend so much time alone while I'm riding strap on my chrome. Always sip on my own. Don't need you all in my zone. Spend so much time alone while I'm riding strap on my chrome.
Been out of these streets, nigga trying to eat while the police own family stealing from me. I'm mama told me to pray, but white Jesus can't save me. Get him away from me. I don't know what to say. So many niggas hating me. Get them away from me.
Always sip on my own. Don't need you all in my zone. Spend so much time alone while I'm riding strap on my chrome. Always sip on my own. Don't need you all in my zone. Spend so much time alone while I'm riding strap on my chrome.
Go and sip on my own. Don't need you all in my zone. Spend so much time alone while I'm riding around with my chrome. Go and sip on my own. Don't need you all in my zone. Spend so much time alone while I'm riding around with my chrome. Trying to keep it on the true side, nigga. Laying low to play it cool, nah, nigga. Ass niggas on the team, I've been known to get the green ever since I was 2-5, nigga. Coop hanging out the roof, nah, nigga. Cause I ain't stunting on them. Put my whole team on so they ain't wantin'. When niggas doing bad, you know that they be hating on you. Get the hoping that you fall, they be waiting on it. Bullshit, get bread from the envy. Best friends get to looking like enemies. When you got it in his bank account empty. Perfect recipe to brittle out of jealousy. Looking from a bird's eye view. Learn from everything I've been through. Told my baby girl, if you ain't spending life with the nigga, never let him put a dick up in you. Cause if a nigga wrong, I'ma check that shit. And when you paper long, never flex that shit. Told my son, when you getting money, never trick it to a bop and flip it over, then invest that shit. Give a lot of game, trying to bless my kids. Gotta keep it real, that's the best shit. Got hitters up in Philly, back in Texas. When I get up on the track, yeah, I wreck shit.
Always sip on my own. Don't need you all in my zone. Spend so much time alone while I'm riding strap on my chrome. Always sip on my own. Don't need you all in my zone. Spend so much time alone while I'm riding strap on my chrome.
Go and sip on my own. Don't need you all in my zone. Spend so much time alone while I'm riding around with my chrome. Go and sip on my own. Don't need you all in my zone. Spend so much time alone while I'm riding around with my chrome.
No excuses. Yeah, we are the ISUPK. That's the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. under Commanding General Johannes since 1969, and we are sent out to teach the so-called Black, so-called Hispanic, and so-called Native American people that we are the true Hebrew Israelites of the Holy Bible. All right. I'm Officer Tasha Young.
Khan. I'm Officer Isaiah War.
All right. Tonight's class is an interesting class because it gives us a chance to go into some history. All right. It's going to be a real good class. It's going to be real meaty. All right. A lot of times you guys hear me say that in order to understand a document, you must understand the history that leads up to the document. I say this a lot. This is one of the big problems that Christians have. All right. Christians have a big problem, especially with the law. Tonight's class is a law class. On Wednesdays, we'll be doing these law classes, and we'll be touching on different aspects of the law. All right. And this is something that Christians definitely don't subscribe in. I have met some Christians that has, but I've also met a lot of Christians that don't subscribe to the Old Testament at all. And that's where the problem comes in at, because you're not understanding the history that leads up to that document, and that document will be the New Testament. So just think about it. Leading up to the New Testament, if you don't understand the history that leads up to it, what happens is, Salakia, what happens is the foundation of your understanding is the New Testament. That's your foundation. And when you talk to Christians, and if you're skillful in the scriptures, all right, if you're skillful in the scriptures, you can pick it up. You can actually pick up the fact that they are using the New Testament as their foundation of understanding of the whole Bible. All right, of the whole entire Bible. They're not really looking at the Old Testament that leads up to the New Testament. They're looking at the New Testament, and they're saying some things maybe in the Old Testament. But Christians mainly use the New Testament as their foundation. You got something you want to add on that?
No, like you said, they definitely do, and they'll take a whole predisposition and create that off of everything that they know from the New Testament, and just apply it to everything. And the one thing, and I'm pretty sure you probably jump on that as well, is that they'll go and say, well, the children of Israel messed up. You see what I'm saying? And because they messed up, we no longer are keeping what the covenant said in the Old Testament. You see what I'm saying? And, they don't understand what that new covenant is. They don't understand this. And I'm pretty sure you're going to get into it. So I ain't going to blow your cover.
Well, since you brought it up, maybe I'm going to touch on that about what it is. All right. I'm going to touch on that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you two different things that must take place. Mm-hmm. Okay. But I am going to get into that. But let me get back to just talking about the fact that Christians use the New Testament as their foundation. Now, there's a book. Now, this book right here, you guys can see it. Can you read that out? Can you see that?
Get it a little bit closer. I can hardly see it, but my eyes ain't that great.
All right. Well, it's called How to Make a Negro a Christian.
I see it now, looking at the TV. I can see it. You see it? Yeah.
All right. Now, this book right here is a commentary of an actual book on how to teach Negroes how to be a Christian, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, this book was actually, I read this book. It's an interesting book. All right. This is just a commentary right here of the book. But I lent the book out so someone has it right now. But in the book, it's a couple things that they have to teach us a presupposition before we could read the Bible as a whole. We was taught only the New Testament as a whole. And when I say as a whole, I mean as a people. All right. It wasn't one plantation or two plantations or three plantations. When they decided to teach or allow us to learn things about the Most High or learn things about the Bible, it was taught only the New Testament. They even had some Bibles that had the New Testament and just the Psalms in it. They
Right.
came in those little small Bible.
Kind of kind.
You familiar with that?
Yeah, matter of fact, I got one around here somewhere. I know I do.
Right.
But all
So,
just the New Testament. Kind of
that's just the New Testament. So this is what they're learning. So they're not really understanding the documents that lead up to the New Testament.
Right.
All right. So we're going to show how the documents, which is the Old Testament, is very important and very vital. Understanding the New Testament. All right.
Kind
All
of
right.
kind.
So the first thing we want to do is I want to pull out what you were saying about the new covenant, right? The new covenant is only between the house of Israel and the house of Judah. All right, let's go to that. We're actually going to look at the one in Jeremiah.
Kind of kind.
Jeremiah 31 and 31. I'm gonna need two of them. I'm gonna need that one, and then I'm gonna need Isaiah chapter 2.
All right, kind of kind. So you
right.
said Jeremiah 31 and 31, and then you said Isaiah chapter 2.
Let me make sure that Isaiah piece. I think that's correct. Shooting from the hip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, kind of. All right, so this is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 31 and verse 31.
Let's get it.
It says, "Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah."
So this is a new covenant. Yo, listen, Christians can't get around this. Without this combination I'm getting ready to give y'all, listen, they can't get around this. So he's saying, behold, the day coming that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. Well, why is it saying the house of Israel and the house of Judah?
Right.
Saying the house of Israel and the house of Judah is because you have to understand the history that's leading up to this document. Leading up to the New Testament, you have to understand, well, why is he not just saying Israel? Why is he saying Israel and Judah? This is important. This is important. Why is he saying that? Why isn't he just saying, behold, I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel? It's saying with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. Come on.
Kind of kind. You want me to continue on?
I want you to continue on because we're going to actually examine the history on why he's saying the house of Israel and the house of Judah. All right. All right, go ahead. Come on.
Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break. Although I was an husband unto them, saith the Lord.
Read.
But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, saith the Lord, I will put my law in their inward parts,
right,
and write it in their hearts.
That means he's going to put it in their mind.
Kind.
Read.
Excuse me. And will be their God, and they shall be my people.
Come on.
And they shall teach no more every man his.
Salakia. Very important right here. I want you guys to pay a close attention to this part right here, because this is the part that we're really going to lock in on. All right. Okay. We already know that it's between the house of Israel and the house of Judah. And this is the covenant that he will make with the house of Israel. Salakia.
Okay. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know the Lord, for they shall all know me. Then the least of them, Salakia, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, saith the Lord.
All right, so I understand what he's saying here. He's saying, right here, and I was actually looking at Hebrews 8 and 11, because it's exactly the same thing. But what he's saying is, and they shall teach no more every man his neighbor. So he's saying it's not going to be no more teaching. Why is it not going to be any more teaching? Because according to verse 33, he says, I will put my law in their inward parts, right? And write it in their hearts, and will be their God, and they shall be my people. So here he's saying he will put the law in their inward parts. So by doing that, in verse 34, he says, and they shall teach no more every neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know the Lord, for they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, saith Yahweh. All right. So it ain't gonna be no more teaching.
Right.
All right. Watch this. Go to Isaiah. See, in the new covenant, we're dealing with the new covenant. It's talking about the house of Israel and the house of Judah.
Right.
Remember, it's going to be a judgment that comes, and there's going to be people that are going to be left over from this judgment that's going to submit to us being over them, right? And when they do, are we going to teach them? This is going to show you it's a difference between us and them. And when I mean us and them, meaning us and the other nations. There's a big difference between us. Now remember, I'm going to read it again in verse 34. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor. Well, that's talking about Israelites, right?
Right.
And every man his brother. That's talking about Israelites. So it ain't going to have to be taught to know Israelite no more, because we're going to know it, because the Most High is going to put it in our inward part. Well, what about the other nations? Are they a part of this covenant that the Most High is writing the law in their inward part? Well, according to what we just read, no. And I'm going to prove it. Now let's go to Isaiah chapter 2. We're going to start at verse 2.
This is the book of Isaiah chapter 2 and verse 2. And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it.
So all nations shall flow unto it. Now, I want to make something clear. This is not talking about them being a part of what we just read as far as the new covenant, and I'm going to prove it. But before this take place, before it says, and it shall come to pass in the last days that in the mountain of Yahweh's house shall be established in the top of the mountain, right? It says, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. Before all nations are able to flow unto it, something else must take place. Really quick, I'm just going to pull this real quick. Give me Revelation 2 and 25.
Revelation 2:25. It's the book of Revelations chapter 2 and verse 25.
Salaki, start at verse 26.
Verse 26. And he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations.
Power over what?
The nations.
Power over what?
The nations.
All right. So when he says, and he that overcometh, it's talking about Israel. He that overcometh and keep my works. Well, what is my works? It's those laws written in their inward part. It's the laws, statutes, and the commandments, right? Unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations, right? Read.
And he shall rule them with a rod of iron, as the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I received of my Father.
All right. So what this is saying is that we're going to be over those nations. That's us receiving that new covenant, the law written in our inward part, right? That's us at that point. But when you deal with what we about to read in Isaiah 2, this is talking about all nations now. And remember, we will not have to teach no more our neighbors or our brothers anything, because the greatest to the least will know us. So now let's go back to Isaiah chapter 2, because Isaiah chapter 2 is talking about all nations. All right. At the end of Isaiah 2 and 2, it says, and all nations shall flow unto it. Read.
And many people shall go and say, come ye, and let us go up to the mountains of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways.
He will do what?
He will teach us of his ways.
He will what? Do what?
Teach us of his ways.
So Why would he have to teach us his ways if he already wrote it in our inward part? The reason why is because it's not going to be taught, have to be taught to us. We're going to have to teach the other nations. That's what that's talking about. So the New Testament is only for the house of Israel and the house of Judah. And it's no more have to teach us. But far as all nations, he says what? Read it again.
Salakia.
And he will
teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law.
Shall go forth the what?
The law.
Read.
And the word of the Lord from Jerusalem.
Read.
And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore.
All right. So this is what it's talking about when it's talking about dealing with that New Testament. It's not for everybody. All right. The new covenant is between the house of Israel and the house of Judah. And now let's get into the topic. The topic of this class tonight is I'm giving a new law. Let's go to that. That's John chapter 13 and verse 34. Now, Christians, once again, and this is why I brought this up, because Christians like to say, you know, they try to use the New Testament as a book of its own. They try to act like the Old Testament doesn't exist. And then when they read language like a new commandment, that turns into, oh, so it's a new commandment. So if there's a new commandment, that means that the old commandment is done away. That's what they believe, right?
Right.
So can you read that for me out real quick? 34 and 35.
What was that?
John chapter 13, 34 and 35.
Come on, 1 second here. All right, this is the book of John chapter 13, verse 34.
Read.
A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another. As I have loved you, that ye also love one another.
Read.
By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if you have love one to another.
Very important. Why is the Most High having a Yahweh Shah? Because remember, he doesn't do anything of his own. He only do and teach the will of him that sent him. Right. So Yahweh Shah is saying, a new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another, as I have loved you, that ye also love one another. So why is he saying this? Why is he saying, I give you a new commandment? Why? This is the question. Why is he saying this? Well, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to show you why he had to come and do just this. Remember, our argument and our placement dealing with these scriptures as Israelites is, leading up to the New Testament, there was a northern kingdom and a southern kingdom. All right. And the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom is the house of Israel and the house of Judah. The southern kingdom is Judah. The northern kingdom is Israel. All right. They had became enemies. And we're going to explore that. And we're going to explore who came back into the kingdom and why it was such a big fuss about these Gentiles, which we're saying is Israelites. We're actually going to prove all of this throughout this study. So it might be a part 2 to this. It might be a part 1 and a part 2 because it's pretty lengthy, but it's a lot of information that is very important for you to understand the scriptures. So this is why I say this is a really good class tonight, because you're going to get a chance to actually see the history that leads up to this New Testament. So we're going to start at 1 Kings chapter 11.
Oh God.
Why did Yahweh Shah say, I give you a new covenant that you got to love one another? Right. Why is he doing that? Why is this taking place? We're going to take a look at the history that leads up to this New Testament, that leads up to this new law, and understand. And it's not really a new law in the aspect of this is brand new and this is something that's he's just bringing up now. He's not saying that. He's not saying that at all. He's actually bringing them back and bringing the Salakia, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, which are brothers. He's bringing them back together. And we're going to show it. All right, so let's go to 1 Kings chapter 11. We're going to start at verse 1.
This is the book of 1 Kings chapter 11 and verse 1. But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites.
All right. So right here, Solomon had took many foreign women to wife, when the Most High said to him very clearly in the law that we should not do this, because if we do this, what'll happen is we'll start to love their God. All right. We'll start to, and this is what happened with a lot of Christians today. If you really think about it, when I'm talking to brothers and Jakes, when I'm talking to Jakes and they making their point, they're only making this argument is because they're in some form of relationship with the enemy, whether it be a marriage, whether it be just a boyfriend, girlfriend type thing, or a girlfriend type thing, or it can be just a friendship type thing. It's some type of bond that's making you want to fight for something and not fight for your own people. I mean, just think about it. You'll fight all day for this white Jesus. You'll fight all day for this Edomite Jesus, but
you fight all day for Christmas.
For Christmas, for all of these high places, all of these strongholds, you'll fight for them. Why? Because you've fallen in love. You have fallen in love with your enemy's God. All right, that's where that's taking place. So read that again. Solomon did that. Understand, this is Solomon, King Solomon. This is actually David's son, right? King David's son. Read.
But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites.
Read.
Of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, ye shall not go into them, neither shall they come in unto you. For surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love.
So notice what he said. The Most High said, surely they will turn away. They will turn away your heart from Salakia. They will turn away your heart after their God. They're going to turn away your heart from the Most High. And now you're going to be focusing on their gods. All right. Now let's get that precept on when he told us not to do just that. Give me Deuteronomy chapter 7. And we're going to start at let's get right to it. Verse 3.
This is the book of Deuteronomy chapter 7 and verse 3.
Read.
Neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them.
Read.
Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son.
Come on.
For they will turn away thy son from following me.
They will do what?
They will turn away thy son from following me.
This is the law. Read.
That they may serve other gods.
That they may do what?
Serve other gods.
Come on.
So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you and destroy thee suddenly.
All right. So now let's go back. Let's go back to King, 1 King 11. Because Solomon did this. Solomon cleaved unto the daughter of Pharaoh, the Moabites, the Amorites, the Edomites, the Zodans, and the Hittites. So he cleaved unto nations that the Most High told us not to do, not to make covenants with, and not to go in unto them. This is what Solomon did. Read.
And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. For it came to pass, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his father.
So now, remember, in his law, let the Most High be true and every man a liar. Everything that the Most High is saying in his law that this would happen, it's happening.
Right.
It's happening, and you actually reading about it. Read verse 5.
Okay. For Solomon went after Ashtaroth, the goddess of the Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. Mm. And Solomon, yeah, you know, he was eating all types of strange things. Yeah. Salagia. And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord, and went not fully after the Lord, as did David his father.
So remember, and look, that's the measuring stick that the Most High used a lot. You did not, the king, whoever the king may be, did not follow after David. David was the example of what the Most High is talking about as far as being one after his own heart. He gave a perfect example. So here we see that now at this point, Solomon begins to build all these places for all of these foreign gods, for all of his strange women, right? He started doing these things, right? So we're gonna jump to verse 9.
Verse 9, the book of 1 Kings, chapter 11, verse 9.
Read.
And the Lord was angry with Solomon.
Come on.
Because his heart was turned from the Lord God of Israel.
Just as the Lord said. Read.
Which had appeared unto him twice.
Come on.
And had commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods.
So the Most High came to him twice. And warned him about this. But look at this. Read. But
excuse me. But he kept not that which the Lord commanded.
But he kept not. He didn't do it. He didn't follow after thus said Yahweh.
Right.
He didn't follow after that. So now he's taking his own journey. He's doing his own thing. He's following his own lust. He's following after the gods of the strange women. Read.
Right. Wherefore the Lord said unto Solomon, for as much as this is done of thee, and thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I have commanded thee, I will surely rend the kingdom from thee.
So he said, I will surely rip the kingdom from you. Because of those actions, because you're not following his laws, statutes, and the commandments, he's saying, you know what I'm going to do for you, Solomon? I'm going to rip the kingdom from you. I'm going to take it from you. This history is very important on why the Most High had to give this new commandment. This is leading up to it. It's very, very, very important. And if you don't understand this, the history that we get ready to give, you will not understand the New Testament at all. You won't understand it. You'll be leaning to your own understanding. The New Testament will become the foundation of your understanding of the Bible.
Right.
Because you have to understand this. All right. Read.
Notwithstanding in thy days, Salakia, I will surely rend the kingdom from thee and will give it to thy servant. Notwithstanding in thy days, I will not do it for David thy father's sake, but I will rend it out of the hand of thy son.
All right. So right here, he's saying, because of David, remember that's his measuring stick. He says, notwithstanding in thy day will I do this. So I'm not going to do it while you still alive, while you still in your day, not for your sake, but for David, your father's sake. Right? He says, but I will take it out of thy hands, out of the hand of thy son. Right? And he's going to give it to a servant. Go ahead, read. Am I jumping?
No, you two out.
Go ahead, read.
Howbeit, I will not rend away the kingdom, but will give one tribe to thy son for David my servant's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, which I have chosen.
Very important. This is very, 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 very important to understanding the New Testament.
Yeah, that's deep.
Yeah, very important. In verse 13, he says, howbeit, I will not rip away all the kingdom. So I'm not going to rip the whole thing from you. All right. But I will give you one tribe, just one, to thy son for David, my servant's sake. Right. Now, I'm gonna jump a gun a little bit, but we're gonna go over it. But I just want to show you what that one tribe is. Go to chapter 12 and 19 and 20.
Khan. This is the book of 1 Kings, chapter 12, verse 19. So Israel rebelled against the house of David unto this day.
Read.
And it came to pass when all Israel heard that Jeroboam was come again, that they sent and called him unto the congregation and made him king over all Israel.
Over all who?
Israel.
Read.
There was none that followed the house of David, but the tribe of Judah only.
The tribe of who?
Judah only.
Do you know who Judah is called in the New Testament? Jews.
There it is.
Jews.
Okay.
That's what in the new covenant. You remember, we're dealing with Greek too, right? So Jews is what they are referred to. This is who that one tribe is.
If I may, sir. If I may, sir. Can I read 21?
Go ahead.
It says, and when Rehoboam was come to Jerusalem, he assembled all the house of Judah with the tribe of Benjamin and 180,000 chosen men, which were warriors to fight against the house of Israel, to bring the kingdom again to Rehoboam, the son of Solomon.
Right. All right. So real quick, I wanted to wait for this, but this is very important.
Okay.
No, that's too wild. It says that he did this to fight war, to fight against the house of Israel. Here's the house of Israel and the house of Judah getting ready to fight. It's getting ready to be a fight. Because why? They became enemies. These brothers became enemies. And that's our point on why it's saying that I give you a new covenant, that you got to love one another. Because they had became enemies. All right. So we're going to get to that. But I really want people to understand, especially our people, Blacks, Hispanics, and Native American people, we must understand the history that leads up to this the document, which is the New Testament. All right. So let's I mean, we didn't already hit it now. We didn't hit it. Let's go back to we're gonna go back to chapter 12. All right. What I recommend people to do is to read chapter 11. All right. I will read chapter 11. All right. Because it's very important to understand what took place. Remember, they had both broke up into two kingdoms. We're saying you had the northern kingdom and you had the southern kingdom. So now we're about to see how the makeup of these kingdoms was, and to prove that you had Judah and Israel. All right. Israel had become Ephraim. Northern kingdom was also referred to as Ephraim. All right. It's very important to understand that just as well. So let's go back. Let's go back to 1 King 11. 1 King 11. All right.
Pick up at 14.
Where we stopped at verse 12. Okay, now we have verse 14.
And the Lord stirred up an adversary unto Solomon. Hadad the Edomite, he was of the king's seed in Edom. For it came to pass when David was in Edom, and Joab, the captain of the host, was gone up to bury the slain, after he had smitten every male in Edom. For 6 months Joab remained there with all Israel, until he had cut off every male in Edom. That Hadad fled, he and certain Edomites of his father's servants with him, to go into Egypt, Hadad being yet a little child. And they arose out of Midian and came to Paran, and they took men with them out of Paran, and they came to Egypt unto Pharaoh, king of Egypt, which gave him an house and appointed him victuals and gave him land.
All right, go down to verse 21.
And when Hadad heard in Egypt that David slept with his fathers, and that Joab, the captain of the host, was dead, Hadad said to Pharaoh, let me depart, that I may go to mine own country. Then Pharaoh said unto him, But what hast thou lacked with me, that, behold, thou seekest to go to thine own country? And he answered, Nothing. Howbeit, let me go in any wise.
Right. So he wanted to just get back now because he found out that David had that had died, and his captain had died. Right. All right. So now the Most High had actually stirred up the heart, stirred him up. Go ahead. You can read verse 23.
And God stirred him up another adversary, Rezon the son of Eliada, which fled from his lord Hadadezer, king of Zobah. And he gathered men unto him, and became captain over a band. When David slew them of Zobah, and they went to Damascus, and dwelt therein, and reigned in Damascus. And he was an adversary to Israel all the days of Solomon, beside the mischief that Hadad did. And he abhorred Israel and reigned over Syria.
So this is why he had so much anger and distaste towards Israel. All right, go ahead.
And Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, an Ephrathite,
right,
of Zerada, Solomon's servant.
Solomon's who?
Solomon's servant.
So who was the kingdom? He said he was going to rip the kingdom from his son and give it to a servant. Keep that in mind. All right. So this would be the servant. Read.
Whose mother's name was Zeruiah, a widow woman. Even he lifted up his hand against the king. And this was the cause that he lifted up his hand against the king. Solomon built Millo and repaired the breaches of the city of David, his father.
Come on.
And the man Jeroboam was a mighty man of valor. And Solomon, seeing the young man that he was industrious, he made him ruler over all the charge of the house of Joseph.
All right. So that's why he was over the Ephraim, right? Read.
Slacky. And it came to pass at that time, when Jeroboam went out of Jerusalem, that the prophet Ahijah, the Shilonite, found him in the way.
Right.
And he had clad himself with a new garment, and they two were alone in the field.
So he had on a new garment. So they was in the field alone. All right. So now he's with this prophet Ahijah, right? Now, listen to very carefully what Ahijah says to him. Verse 30. Read.
And Ahijah caught the new garment that was on him and rent it into 12 pieces.
So he took the garment off of him and he ripped it into 12 pieces. Read.
And he said to Jeroboam, Take thee 10 pieces.
Take what?
Take thee 10 pieces.
Take 10 pieces of the ripped up garment. Go ahead.
For thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, Behold, I will rend the kingdom out of the hand of Solomon, and will give 10 tribes to thee. But he shall have one tribe for my servant David's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, the city which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel.
So here we see that it was prophesied unto Jeroboam that the kingdom will be ripped up into pieces. It will be broken into pieces. You will have 10 tribes, which is what we're saying the northern kingdom, and you're going to have one tribe left, which is Judah. Now, that how many is that? That's what 11, right? People say, well, that's only 11. The reason why it's only 11 is because you had Levites, and the Levites was with Judah just as well. Some was with Judah, and some was with Israel. And you're gonna see that actually you had already read that.
Right? So I can show you, your camera's out.
Oh, Salaki. Yeah, you can go ahead and like I said, you can read that again. So understand once again, he said 10 tribes will be 10 pieces was given to him, which means the 10 tribes will be given to him, right? But the one tribe, which is Judah, will be given to Judah. Will be given to Rehoboam. All right, Rehoboam. We haven't gotten to Rehoboam yet.
Right.
But the point is, you have two kingdoms. You got two kingdoms now. You got the northern kingdom and you got the southern kingdom. Let's pull a precept to bring just to, give a little precept on that. Give me Ezekiel 37.
All
right. So remember what we're saying is a new covenant. I mean, Salakia, it's a new commandment. Remember, I just want to get everybody back on track. The reason why it was Yahushua said that he give a new commandment is because we're claiming that the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, they had became enemies. They had began to fight one another. They had been separate. And the Most High sent Yahushua to bring us all back together. All right. So, and we just read that the kingdom will be broken up into two. All right. And one will have 10 tribes and the other one will have one. And the Levites, which is the extra one, will join in, and Benjamin will go over to Judah. We're going to show that just as well. But I just want to show that there was two kingdoms. So give me Ezekiel 37 and 22. All right. Read.
Therefore, say unto the house of Israel.
Salakia, Ezekiel 37 and 22.
I was in 36. Salakia. And I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be king to them all.
Talking about Israel. Read.
And they shall be no more two nations.
They shall be no more what?
Two nations.
Read.
Neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms anymore at all.
So here you see that they were divided into two kingdoms. By the time we got to the time of Ezekiel, they were broken up into two kingdoms. All right. When we're dealing with Ezekiel, we're dealing with like 586 BC, something like that around that time. All right. Okay. So this was many years after what we're reading about Solomon. All right. So they were broken up into two kingdoms. So let's go back to First King. What was we at? First King 11.
Okay.
Now,
11. Salakia. Let me get back there.
All right. So now we actually see it. Where you stop at? Verse.
I was stopped at 15. Well, picking up at 15. Salakia. No, we got all the way to and they arose out of Midian and came to Paran.
All right, you have read the prophecy. You have read the prophecy that was given to
we jumped down. Is that what that is?
Right. By Jeroboam, by Ahijah, right? You read that. And then earlier we read chapter 12, but let's get into who was over the other kingdom and the structure of the two kingdoms. We got to get into that. So let's keep going.
12. I keep going on 31. 33. All right, kind of okay.
Well, because you stopped at Salakia. You stopped at verse 12. I mean, verse 30.
We read 31.
Right.
And we didn't do 32 though.
All right, let's start at 32.
Well, we did 32 because we talked about Salakia, sir. We talked about the one tribe that was given to David to his servant.
Salakia. All right, so let's go to 33.
Because that excuse me, this is the book of 1 Kings chapter 11 and verse 33. Because that they have forsaken me and have worshipped Ashereth, the goddess of the Zidonians, Chemosh, the god of the Moabites, and Milcom, the god of the children of Ammon, and have not walked in my ways to do that which is right in mine eyes, and to keep my statutes and my judgments, as did David his father. Howbeit, I will not take the whole kingdom out of his hand, but I will make him prince all the days of his life for David, my servant's sake, whom I chose, because he kept my commandments and my statutes.
So this is why he's taking the action that he is taking. He's taking this action because of David. Everything is going on because of David, because of the faithfulness of David. David being one after his own heart, right?
Okay.
So now we see that it's going to be torn out of his hands, right?
Okay.
So what verse you at now?
36.
Con, let's get it.
Okay. But unto his son will I give one tribe, that David my servant may have a light alway before me in Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen me to put my name there. And I will take thee, and thou shalt reign according to all that thy soul desireth, and shalt be king over Israel. And it shall be, if thou wilt hearken unto all that I command thee, and will walk in my ways, and do that is right in my sight, to keep my statutes and my commandments, as David my servant did, that I will be with thee, and build thee a sure house, as I built for David, and will give Israel unto thee.
You know what's interesting? We had jumped the gun a little bit and went to chapter 12, right? But we know that he didn't do that.
Right.
We know he didn't do it. Like the Most High is promising him all of these things, and we know that he did not do that. Now, well, the Northern Kingdom didn't, but we did have, I believe, one righteous king that came up. I'm not talking about what's his name? The last righteous king we had. I think his name was Joab or something like that. But that's not the one I'm talking about. The one I'm talking about is right after this. It was a king that was righteous under that was following Judah. But let's get into Judah. Now we know the makeup of Israel. All right. We know that Israel now is going to be broken up into two. We see that by the prophet Ahijah. We see that. And we see that one of the kingdoms is going to be given to Jeroboam. But now let's see who's going to take over Judah. Because remember, the covenant said he was going to make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah.
Okay.
All right. This is what he was saying. So now we see Israel. Now let's see Judah. Let's start at 12:1.
This book of 1 Kings chapter 12 and verse 1. And Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel will come to Shechem to make him king.
So why are they doing this? Is because this is David. This is Solomon's son, right? And now that's exactly what's going on. He's supposed to sit on the throne now. And remember, right after when Solomon was on the throne, all 12 tribes was together. And we just read about a prophecy that would take place in the future. So now it's time for Rehoboam to actually inherit the kingdom over all Israel. All right. Verse 2.
And it came to pass when Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who was yet in Egypt, heard of it, for he was fled from the presence of King Solomon, and Jeroboam dwelt in Egypt.
Read.
That they sent and called him, and Jeroboam and all the congregation of Israel came and spake unto Rehoboam.
So now everybody is coming together to speak to Rehoboam. This is very important because now we're about to show you what. Okay, we know that the reason why the kingdom was broken up was because of Solomon's transgressions. But now we're going to see the actions on the cause of it, if I'm saying that right. Well, because the cause would be Solomon, but the actual manifestation of it. How about that? We're about to see how it's actually going down.
How it flowed down, What'd
you say?
How it went down.
Right, that's good, how it went down. So we get a chance to see how this went, because these things are important. All right, read.
Verse 4, the Father made our yoke grievous. Now therefore make thou the grievous service of thy father, and his heavy yoke, which he put upon us, lighter.
All right,
and we will serve thee.
All right, so he's saying, listen, man, your dad was heavy on us, man. The yoke was heavy. You know what I mean? Solomon ain't play that. All right. The yoke was heavy. So now can you make Can you bring it down a little bit? Can you turn the temperature down a little bit? That's what they basically saying.
All right.
All right. Make it a little lighter on us. Don't make things so harder on us. Right. Read.
And he said unto them, depart yet for 3 days, then come again to me. And the people departed.
All right. So this is what he said. He said, listen, give me 3 days to think about it. Give me 3 days. Let me meditate on this thing. And then we'll get back together and I'll let y'all know my decision about what y'all just asked me. All right.
Right.
Read.
And King Rehoboam consulted with the old men that stood before Solomon, his father, while he yet lived, and said, how do you advise that I may answer this people? And they spake unto him, saying, if thou wilt be a servant unto this people this day, and will serve them, and answer them, and speak good words to them, then they will be thy servants forever. But he forsook the counsel of the old men, which they had given him, and consulted with the young men that were grown up with him, and which stood before him.
All right, so he, after what they said to him, he like blew that off.
You know, yeah,
Said, I hear you. Yeah. Let me go ask a couple of my homies, a couple of the boys I grew up with. You know what I mean? We felt this together.
Right.
We went through these things together. They saw what was going on. Let me go talk to the young ones. Not the elders, but I'm gonna go to the young ones. Like today they say, let your young children make their mind up of what sex they want to be. That's remind me of. You're not going to look at the wise. You're not going to look at the adults. You're not going to look at the parents. You're going to let the children make the decision. So this is what we're having right here. They're like, well, you know, I'm gonna go to my friends, the people that I grew up with, and ask them. All right, verse 9.
And he said unto them, what counsel give ye that we may answer this people, who have spoken to me, saying, make the yoke which thy father did put upon us lighter? And the young men that were grown up with him spake unto him, saying, thus shalt thou speak unto this people that spake unto thee, saying, thy father made our yoke heavy, but make thou it lighter unto us. Thus shalt thou say unto them, my little finger shall be thicker than my father's loins.
I'm getting ready to break y'all back.
God, dog. Basically, you think he did something.
Yeah, that ain't nothing.
That ain't nothing. Wait till you see what I did. What I'm gonna do.
Nothing. I'm gonna put this yoke gonna be heavy.
Yeah, goodness gracious.
All right, go ahead.
And now, whereas my father did lay you with a heavy yoke, I will add to your yoke. My father has chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions.
I'm about to tear the. Listen,
about to tear fire to that. Hey. So Jeroboam,
skin off of you.
God. So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam the third day, as the king had appointed, saying.
Right. Remember, he said, "Get back to me in 3 days."
Right.
Right. Go ahead.
Come to me again the third day. And the king answered the people roughly, and forsook the old men's counsel that they gave him, and spake to them after the counsel of the young men, saying, my father made your yoke heavy, and I will add to your yoke. My father also chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. Wherefore the king hearkened not unto the people, for the cause was from the Lord, that he might perform his saying, which the Lord spake by Ahijah the Shilonite, and Jeroboam the son of Nebat.
All right, remember what he told him. We read about it. We read about the prophecy. The prophecy said, listen, I'm going to rip the kingdom into two. 10 tribes is going to go one way, and 1 tribe is going to go another way. All right?
Okay.
Remember, he said that. So at the end of that, he's saying with all of this is taking place. So the saying which Yahweh spoke unto Ahijah, the Shilonite, unto Jeroboam, the son of Nebat. So he's here we see that this is like Officer Zawa said, this is how it's going down. This is how it's going to happen. This is how it's going to be manifested. What Solomon did, the actions of Solomon is about to go into effect. All right. Verse 16, read.
So when all Israel saw that the king hearkened not unto them, the people answered the king, saying, what portion have we in David?
What?
What portion have we in David?
When you say what portion you have in David, you're talking about Judah.
Right.
You're talking about Judah. Whenever if you see anything, any language like that, what portion have we in David? That's what they saying after they heard him say, well, yo, I'm about to crack y'all backbones. I'm a listen. My dad wasn't nothing compared to what I'm going to be. They like, you know what, man, what do we got to do with David anyway? We don't got nothing to do with David anyway.
Right.
Read?
Neither have we inheritance in the son of Jesse. To your tents.
So we don't listen. We don't inherit none of their stuff anyway. They got their land. We got our land. Everybody got their land. You know what I'm saying? So we don't have no inheritance in the son of Jesse and to his tents. His tents is his tents. Our tents is our tents. This is basically what they saying. Read.
Yep. O Israel, now see to thine own house, David.
Yeah. You know what? See to Judah.
Right.
Go. Don't worry about Israel. Deal with Judah, man, because we don't have any inheritance with you anyway. Read.
Right. So Israel departed unto their tents.
So Israel departed unto their tents. They like, man, listen, we ain't got nothing to do with this. Read.
But as for the children of Israel, which dwelt in the cities of Judah.
So you had some that was from Israel that actually lived in the cities of Judah. Read.
Which Rehoboam reigned over them.
So he reigned over them. Read.
Then King Rehoboam sent Adoram, who was over the tribute, and all Israel stoned him with stones, that he died. Therefore King Rehoboam made speed to get him up to his chariot to flee to Jerusalem.
Come on.
Dang. So Israel rebelled against the house of David unto this day.
Until this day. Now, this is what we was reading earlier. So now it gets important because remember, we said there's two kingdoms. You got one kingdom that got 10, and you got one kingdom that got 1. So how many is that? That's 11.
Right.
That's 11. That's supposed to be 12, right?
Right.
So now you about to see the 12th. Go ahead.
Verse 20. And it came to pass when all Israel heard that Jeroboam was come again, that they sent and called him unto the congregation and made him king over all Israel. There was none that followed the house of David, but the tribe of Judah only. And when Rehoboam was come to Jerusalem, he assembled all the house of Judah with the tribe of Benjamin.
So that's your other one. So now, how many is that? That's 12. That's 10. Then you got 1 is 11, and then Benjamin make 12. So now you got the house of Israel, and you got the house of Israel, and you got the house of Judah, and you have some Levites because you have to have some Levites. And you got to have some priests. You got to have some Levites. All right. And I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you guys that. All right, but go ahead, keep reading that right there.
184,000 chosen men, which were warriors to fight against the house of Israel, to bring the kingdom again to Rehoboam, the son of Solomon.
All right. So we see the action. We see what took place and what caused the actual separation. We saw what took place in the life of Solomon and what took place in the life of his son.
Right.
And now they're divided into 2. I want you to give me 13 and 1.
This is the book of 1 Kings, chapter 13 and verse 1. And behold, there came a man of God out of Judah by the word of the Lord unto Bethel, and Jeroboam stood by the altar to burn incense.
Read.
And he cried against the altar in the word of the Lord, and said, O altar, altar, thus saith the Lord, behold, a child shall be born unto the house of David, Josiah by name. And upon thee shall he offer the priests of the high places that burn incense upon thee, and men's bones shall be burnt upon thee.
Read.
And he gave a sign the same day, saying, this is the sign which the Lord hath spoken. Behold, the altar shall be rent, and the ashes that are upon it shall be poured out. And it came to pass, when King Jeroboam heard the saying of the man of God, which he had cried against the altar in Bethel, that he put forth his hand from the altar, saying, lay hold on him. And his hand, which he put forth against him, dried up, so that he could not put it in again to him.
Read. Yeah, all right.
The altar also was rent, and the ashes poured out from the altar, according to the sign which the man of God had given by the word of the Lord. And the king answered and said unto the man of God, entreat now the face of the Lord thy God, and pray for me that my hand may be restored me again.
Come on.
And the man of God besought the Lord, and the king's hand was restored him again, and became as it was before. And the king said unto the man of God, come home with me, and refresh thyself, and I will give thee a reward. And the man of God said unto the king, if thou wilt give me half thine house, I will not go in with thee, neither will I eat bread nor drink water in this place. For so was it charged me by the word of the Lord, saying, eat no bread nor drink water, nor turn again by the same way that thou camest.
So he went. He's saying that the Lord is basically saying, don't do none of that.
Don't do none of it.
Don't do none of that, and go back the same way you came. Go ahead.
Right. Well, he said, don't go back.
He said, go back. He said, that's what he said. He says, nor drink, nor turn. No, he says, nor turn again by the way, the same way that
he said, go another way.
Right.
So he went another way, and returned not by the way that he came to Bethel. Now there dwelt an old prophet in Bethel, and his son came and told him all the works that the man of God had done that day in Bethel. The words which he had spoken unto the king, them they told also and to their father. And their father said unto them, what way went he? Salakia, man, you gotta love this book, man.
Got you.
Oh man. For his sons had seen what way the man of God went, which came from Judah. And he said unto his sons, saddle me the ass. So they saddled him the ass, and he rode thereon, and went after the man of God, and found him sitting under an oak. And he said unto him, art thou the man of God that camest from Judah? And he said, I am. Then he said unto him, come home with me and eat bread. And he said, I may not return with thee, nor go in with thee, neither will I eat bread nor drink water with thee in this place. For it was said to me by the word of the Lord, thou shalt eat no bread nor drink water there, nor turn again to go by the way that thou camest. He said unto him, I am a prophet also as thou art. And an angel spake unto me by the word of the Lord, saying, bring him back with thee into thine house, that he may eat bread and drink water. But he lied unto him.
Right.
So he went back with him. Wow. And did eat bread in his house and drank water. And it came to pass, as they sat at the table, that the word of the Lord came unto the prophet that brought him back. And he cried unto the man of God that came from Judah, saying, thus saith the Lord, for as much as thou hast disobeyed the mouth of the Lord, and hast not kept the commandment which the Lord thy God commanded thee, but camest back and hast eaten bread and drunk water in the place of the which the Lord did say to thee, eat no bread and drink no water, thy carcass shall not come unto the sepulchre of thy fathers.
Go ahead.
And it came to pass, after he had eaten bread and after he had drank, that he saddled for him the ass, to wit, for the prophet whom he had brought back. And when he was gone, a lion met him by the way and slew him. God. And his carcass was cast in the way, and the ass stood by it. The lion also stood by the carcass. And behold, men passed by and saw the carcass cast in the way, and the lion standing by the carcass. And they came and told it in the city where the old prophet dwelt. And when the prophet that brought him back from the way heard thereof, he said, it is the man of God who was disobedient unto the word of the Lord Therefore the Lord hath delivered him unto the lion, which hath torn him and slain him, according to the word of the Lord, which he spake unto him. And he spake to his son, saying, Saddle me the ass, and they saddle him. And he went and found his carcass cast in the way, and the ass and the lion standing by the carcass. The lion had not eaten the carcass, nor torn the ass. And the prophets took up the carcass of the man of God and laid it upon the ass and brought it back. And the old prophet came to the city to mourn and to bury him. And he laid his carcass in his own grave. And they mourned over him, saying, Alas, my brother. And it came to pass after he had buried him that he spake to his son, saying, When I am dead, then bury me in the sepulchre wherein the man of God is buried. Lay my bones beside his bones. For the saying which he cried by the word of the Lord against the altar in Bethel, and against all the houses of the high places which are in the cities of Samaria, shall surely come to pass.
Right.
After this thing, Jeroboam returned not from his evil way, but made again of the lowest of the people priests of the high places. Whosoever would, he consecrated him, and he became one of the priests of the high places.
You know what's crazy about what you just read? What you got to add to this? This right here is heavy.
It is.
It's real heavy. You want to add something to this before?
No, so like, if I may, when I just read it, you know what I'm thinking about.
What's that?
You know what I mean? You know, thinking of how we make, you know, anybody ahead here, you know, in our nation today.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? We still doing this. We still letting anybody, they don't have to be learned. They don't have to have full understanding of what the scripture's saying. They don't have to know anything. And they could just be like, you got pimps and prostitutes as preachers in the church.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So when I read this, I'm just thinking about, I'm kind of like how things are today. And, you know, long as you got a nice car out front, you can go ahead and lead the people. And most of the times you robbing the people.
And by following them, it got him killed.
Right.
I mean,
many people that's out here.
At first, he was on it at first, but then he fell. He didn't keep that word, but was heavy too. After these things, Jeroboam, he didn't stop.
He didn't stop either.
He didn't stop. He went on
Kept
forward.
on going.
So the reason why I want to say this, and then I want to move forward. The disobedience, the disobedience is still there. And you're seeing the sign. Matter of fact, if you want to get technical, when you talk about Jeroboam, remember, when the kingdom got ripped out of his hand, it wasn't like he didn't know, because we follow the law, statutes, and the commandments.
Right.
It wasn't like he was like, well, let me follow after David because David was a great example. He didn't do that. He did his own thing. He didn't want to follow after David. Right. So here it sees right here, right after all of that, in verse 33, it says, after these things, Jeroboam returned not from his evil way. All of that, he still didn't do it.
Right.
He's dead. The prophet is dead. Right? So now what I want to explore is the fact that they had became enemies. Judah and Israel had became enemies, right? I think you read some of it before.
It was in you talking about in 19. Oh, actually, no.
Actually,
we was getting to it.
We were in 12, and you hit some 12. Of it. Well, what happened in them getting ready to go to war, right? The Most High actually stopped them from going to war. He stopped them from fighting, but that didn't stop them from becoming enemies anyway. Right. They still had became enemies. They still had been fighting one another, and the Most High had to restore that. He had to restore that, and it's going to definitely have to be a part 2. It's definitely going to have to be a part 2. So let's get into a little bit of the fact that they were warring against each other. Let's go to where did I have you go? I had you
22.
Go to chapter 14.
Oh, okay,
Chapter 14 and verse. Read chapter 14 and verse 15. Matter of fact, Salakia. Khan. Go ahead. Chapter 14,
15.
chapter 14 and 14. And I'll tell you when to stop. Read.
This is the book of First Kings, chapter 14 and verse, Salakia. Chapter 14 and verse 14. Moreover, the Lord shall raise him up a king over Israel, who shall cut off the house of Jeroboam that day. But what? Even now. For the Lord shall smite Israel as a reed is shaken in the water, and he shall root up Israel out of this good land.
He shall do what?
He shall root up Israel out of this good land.
No, he shall root up Israel and Judah.
He shall root up Israel out of this good land.
Come on.
Which he gave to their fathers, and shall scatter them beyond the river, because they have made their groves provoking the Lord to anger.
Okay, so when did this take place? You got any idea?
Well, this
when they were rooted up, he says, and he shall root up Israel out of this land. Now we're claiming that he's not talking about all Israel. He's talking about just Israel, which is the northern kingdom. So did he root them up, and did they become Gentiles? Did he root them up and they become Gentiles? Go ahead.
Well, this is before captivity, the Syrian captivity.
Is this leading to the Syrian captivity? Exactly.
Actually, this is also before the Babylonian captivity, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's before the Babylonian captivity. So it's very important that you understand this history. Let's go to 2 Kings 17. We're just going to deal with the northern kingdom at this point, and then next week for the law class, we're going to continue this for part 2, and we're going to look at the southern kingdom. All right. So right now we're looking at the northern kingdom. We're seeing that they were separated, they were scattered. The 12 tribes was split into 2. You had the northern kingdom and you had the southern kingdom. The northern kingdom was called Israel. The southern kingdom was called Judah. All right. Now we're looking at the northern kingdom. All right. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at the northern kingdom. All right. I wanted to get into both of them, but like I said, it's very lengthy. So we gotta have a part 2 to this. All right. So when you go to 2 Kings 17 and 1, that's what we're gonna start.
All right.
Second
the book of 17 and 1. This is the book of 2 Kings, chapter 17 and verse 1. In the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, began Hoshea, the son of Elah, to reign in Samaria over Israel 9 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, but not as the kings of Israel that were before him. Against him came up Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, and Hoshea became his servant and gave him presents. And the king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hoshea, for he had sent messengers to So king of Egypt, and brought no present to the king of Assyria, as he had done year by year. Therefore the king of Assyria shut him up and bound him in prison.
All right, so it's very important to understand that it was a conflict with the king of Israel, because the king of Israel did not pay tribute to the king of Assyria like he once was, but instead he went to the king of Egypt. All right, read.
Then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land and went up to Samaria and besieged it 3 years. In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria, and placed them in Halah and in Habor by the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes. For so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, which had brought them up out of the land of Egypt from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and had feared other gods, and walked in the statutes of the heathen.
Did what?
walked in the statutes of the heathen.
Let me ask you a question. If they start walking in the statutes of the heathens, aren't they becoming like the heathens?
Right.
Aren't they becoming Gentiles?
Right.
When you start to rely on Egypt, when you start to fear their gods. Listen, notice in verse 7, it says, and so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against Yahweh, their power, which had brought them out of the land of Egypt from under the hand of Pharaoh and Egypt, and had feared other gods. So that means that they had a respect for other gods. Verse 8 says, and walked in the statutes of the heathens.
God, good night.
Like that right there is really heavy, because this is basically Israelites turning into Gentiles.
Right. Your camera again, sir. Salakia.
This is Israelites turning into Gentiles. That's what this is now. All right, keep reading.
Whom the Lord cast from before the children of Israel, and of the kings of Israel which they had made. And the children of Israel did secretly those things that were not right against the Lord their God, and they built them high places in all their cities, from the tower of the watchman to the fenced city. Good.
They was tripping.
Good night.
They was tripping. Let's get down to verse 13. Time running out.
Yet the Lord testified against Israel and against Judah by all the prophets and by all the seers, saying, turn ye from your evil ways and keep my commandments and my statutes according to all the law which I commanded your fathers, and which I sent to you by my servants the prophets.
All right. So he's warning them. He's saying, listen, turn from your ways. Get to verse 16.
Verse 16, and they left all the commandments of the Lord their God, and made them molten images, even 2 calves, and made a grove, and worship all the host of heaven, and serve Baal.
Read.
And they caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire, and used divination and enchantments, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Lord, to provoke him to anger.
So now they're provoking the Most High Power into anger. Read.
Goodness. Therefore, the Lord was very angry with Israel.
With who?
And with Israel.
Read.
And removed them out of his sight.
Come on.
There was none left but the tribe of Judah only.
Who?
The tribe of Judah only.
Now remember, we already established when you're dealing with Judah, you're dealing with Benjamin, right? And you're dealing with some Levites. We already established that. I want you guys to really keep that in mind. We're gonna come back to that in part 2. All right. Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Read 18 again, so that they'll know that there is a separation. There's a division here. Read.
Therefore, the Lord was very angry with Israel, and he removed them out of his sight. There was none left but the tribe of Judah only.
All right. Verse 23.
Until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants, the prophets, so was Israel carried away out of their own land to Assyria unto this day.
So this is when they were carried away to Assyria. All right. And this is where we kind of going to stop dealing with the northern kingdom right here, because it's very important to understand that. Remember, the northern kingdom, which is Ephraim, right? Remember, they also took a trip just as well. So they was vanished. They was gone. They actually came over here, and we're going to read that. But I would just want to touch on one thing real quick. Go to Hosea chapter 1. You're going to see why. Yeah, you're going to see why this is all taking place. I want you to start at verse 6.
1 second here.
Now in the book of Hosea, we're reading where the Most High is using he's using allegories to teach us about the house of Israel and the house of Judah, and he's teaching us the state and how he's dealing with them. It's very important on how he's dealing with them. Now remember, we just read where he says that he was moving Israel out of his sight. All right. He was moving them completely out of his sight. Well, let's see. All right. And he said, Salaki, if I may, and don't forget, in 2 King 17 and verse 18, it says the only one that was left was Judah only. And like I said, we're going to deal with Judah and bring it up to the new commandment in part 2. All right. But I have to give you the history to understand why Yahushua said, I give you a new covenant. All right.
You only start at verse 10.
Let's get it.
It's the book of Hosea, chapter 1 and verse 10. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the
Salakia. Hosea 1 and 6.
1 and 6, kind of. And she conceived again and bare a daughter. And God said unto him, call her name Loramah, for I will no more have mercy upon the house of Israel.
I will no more have mercy on the house of who?
Israel.
On the house of who?
Israel.
No, Judah.
Israel.
Judah.
Israel.
Read.
But I will utterly take them away.
I will do what?
Utterly take them away.
Now remember, in 2 King chapter 17 and 23, it says, until the Lord remove Israel out of his sight. Right? It says, out of his sight, as he has said by all his servants, the prophets, so was Israel carried away out of the land to Assyria until this day. Right? So here we're reading that he says, I will no more have mercy on the house of Israel, but I will utterly take them away. Read verse 7.
But I will have mercy upon the house of Judah.
I will do what?
I will have mercy upon the house of Judah.
Upon the house of Israel.
Upon the house of Judah.
Read.
And will save them by the Lord their God, and will not save them by bow, nor by sword, nor by battle, by horses, nor by horsemen.
All right. Salakia. So that is very important to understand. And one more. We're gonna go to see what time it is. Give me a time check.
8:55.
You know what? We'll take this up next week, part 2 of the law class dealing with the new commandment. All right. And the question is, why did Yahushua say that he will make a new commandment? He's giving them a new commandment. Why did he say that? And that we have to love one another. Why is he saying this? We're studying the history that leads up to that statement to understand why he was saying it. And what we just went over was the northern kingdom. We glanced at the southern kingdom, but we're looking at the northern kingdom. The northern kingdom would be the house of Israel, also known as Ephraim. Let me give you one more just to go along with that. Go to Genesis chapter, it's a hip shot. 48. 48. Now, what I'm going to show you is that when Joseph, remember Joseph was in Egypt, right? And he had a son. He had 2 sons. He had Manasseh and he had Ephraim. All right. Manasseh was the elder, and Ephraim was the younger. So he was bringing them in to bless them. And he put his right hand on Ephraim and his left hand on Manasseh, if I'm not mistaken. And Joseph was trying to correct him, but he's saying, no, I know exactly what I'm doing. And he's about to tell you, remember, I'm saying that what we just read was Ephraim becoming many nations. Remember, they started following after Salakia. They started having fear for other gods, and they started following their statues. So if you fear other gods, you're following the laws of those gods, and you're following the statues of them gods. And this is what develops a culture. This is what makes you that nation. This is how they became Gentiles. And to prove that this is what's taking place and they're becoming many nations, we're about to read you an event that took place before that, where it was a prophecy that was put in place dealing with Ephraim, which is known as Israel, which is known as the Northern Kingdom. So we're going to look at Genesis chapter 48, start at verse 17.
This is Genesis chapter 48 and verse 17. And when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, it displeased him. And he held up his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head unto Manasseh's head. And Joseph said unto his father, not so, my father, for this is the firstborn, but thy right hand put thy right hand upon his head. And his father refused and said, I know it, my son, I know it. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. But truly his younger brother shall be.
Read that again, verse 19. Now he's talking about Manasseh right here. Read.
And his father refused and said, I know it, my son, I know it. He also shall become a people.
He shall become what?
A people.
Read.
And he also shall be great.
Read.
But truly his younger brother.
But it's very important. He's saying, but, read.
But truly his younger brother shall be greater than he. And his seed shall become a multitude of nations.
How many nations?
Multitude of nations.
Multitude of nations. So Ephraim will become a multitude of nations. It's very important to understand that. So what Ephraim was doing, what the Northern Kingdom was doing, listen, he's doing it. This is what we're reading about when we read about in 2 King, where they start to follow after other nations because they had become other nations. Go ahead, give me verse 20.
And he blessed them that day, saying, in thee shall Israel bless, saying, God make thee as Ephraim and as Manasseh. And he set Ephraim before Manasseh.
All right. So what we took a look at is, I'm just going to give you a recap. Take me back to John 13 and 34. Read that real quick. What we're doing is we're looking at the history that is leading up to why Yahushua said these words. Read.
This is the book of John chapter 13 and verse 34. A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another as I have loved you.
Very important that I love one another as I have loved you. Read.
That ye also love one another. By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if you have love one to another.
Very, very, very important. Brotherhood. That's what this is really about. Brotherhood. And like I said, leading up to the history that's leading up to this statement, what we took a look at, we're looking at these brothers, the ones that Yahushua is saying you have to love one another. We're looking at this. We're examining this. And by examining the history that leads up to this statement, we're going to find out exactly why he was making this statement. And you're going to also get a strong position and a strong idea and a strong understanding on what was taking place during the time of Yahushua's ministry, because we're going to lead right to that. So we took a look at the Northern Kingdom this week. We're gonna touch on a little bit on the Northern Kingdom next week, just a little tab right at the end, because we're gonna look at how they came here, and then we're gonna move forward to the Southern Kingdom, and that's gonna take us right into Yahushua, right into his statement, and then we'll get a chance to see exactly what he was saying. All right. So that's the class. Officer Thasayam out of ISUPK, that's Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, under commanding General Yohana, teaching the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans that we are the true Hebrew Israelites of this book. This is the security announcements. You got them?
ISUPK security announcements. Rule for new brother and sister. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to learn and shed themselves of the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has any interest in a particular person, they are to seek counsel from the heads. Tithes, which is a commandment. Numbers 18:21, Malachi 3:8-10. Ma'ashara, which means 10th in Hebrew. 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you. Priest fund, free will offering for priests, not mandatory. Whatever amount you would like to give. Upcoming holy convocations. We have the Feast of Purim on February 14th, sundown, February 15th. We're going to be learning again, as we stated before, we're going to be learning about Esther. You know, all Achim is to be in attendance. If anyone wants to be a trooper in the school, to start wearing all black boots, shirts, pants, headband, and scarf. And with that, we get to the brothers. One courtesy salute. Shalom Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shabbat. All right, and we also give one courtesy salute to the sisters. Shalom Shamar Alathan by Hashem Yahweh Shah. All right, and with that, Shalom Israel.
Shalom Israel. I was Salakia.
You ended it?
No, can you hold on?
Kind of, I got it.